story to share actually before I go into it is it was a few years ago. I was in Dallas with a friend of mine, and we were doing the church tour thing. So we were going around to different churches and meeting people and kind of getting a taste of different flavors. And so my friend was from a Mennonite Brethren church. He's a worship pastor, so fairly sort of mainstream, conservative but contemporary. And we went to first we went to Gateway Church, which was really great. And then another church we went to was Chuck Swindoll's, what's his church called again? He's out that direction too, isn't he? I can't remember the church's name, but Insight for Living. Anyways, total organ, piano, very classical. And then we also went to your church, Fellowship. It's called Fellowship. Sorry, it's just escaping me now. Is it called Fellowship Church?
Yes, Fellowship Church.
Yes, with Pastor Ed Young, right?
Yep, that's correct.
So anyways, is it with Pastor Ed Young?
That's correct. Yep.
That's right. Well, if anybody knows a little bit about Ed Young, you know that he's like a firecracker in and of himself, I'm sure. He's just a ball full of, creative spirit, and if you listen to him talk and speak and, even visually, I still remember the message that we got when we were there that Sunday because, most pastors, if you were going to speak on a message about eagles, you'd have like pictures of eagles and, maybe books, and you could show people books of eagles. But no, Ed has to go like all the way and bring in, this massive bald eagle and hold it on his hand while he talks to people about eagles. So it was just like, and I think maybe you guys remember that series, but it was some kind of wildlife series, and he was talking about bringing in, I wouldn't be surprised if there was like bears on the next week and whatever, but so that seems to be a little bit of a culture of your church, and maybe we should just sort of start there, and you guys could fill me in on, it's kind of like just a creative culture. That's where this whole Fellowship Creative comes from, and it must stem from your pastor all the way down through the staff and the whole team. So Hope, since you're the fearless leader, why don't you just give us a little taste of that, a taste of, being in the context of a guy like Ed Young as a pastor and, a leader of culture of your church. And I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, definitely that culture of creativity definitely starts at the top, starts with Pastor Ed and Lisa. One thing Pastor Ed always tells us is we have a creative creator. And because of that, we should mirror that in everything we do. And, church should not be a boring place. Church should not be a place that people come and it feels monotonous, but it should be the most creative place in the world because we are reflecting God. And so because of that, every weekend you will see something in our experience that is a little bit out of the box. It's creative because we do all that we can to just make every experience, every weekend tailored, specific for whether it's a series we're doing or a certain truth or theme that we're going to have that weekend. The first thing we're asking ourselves is, man, how can we get creative in what we are wanting to communicate? And so, the cool thing is Fellowship Creative would not be what it is if it weren't for Fellowship Church. And because Pastor Ed is such a creative leader, it trickles down into everything, every department of the church, which includes Fellowship Creative. So, I remember that series that you're talking about when he had the eagle come out, and I think we actually did the song "I Believe I Can Fly" at the end of it, which was so epic and awesome.
A little cheesy.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Well, I tell you what I wouldn't mind hearing right now, maybe each of you, if you could just think, first thing that comes to your head, just an experience of yourself in the life of the church, which just kind of, spoke of the whole concept of creativity where you felt like, whoa, this is like pushing the edge a little bit? So I wouldn't mind hearing just a little blip from each person. So how about let's flip over. I'll just call names out, and then you can kind of jump on. So you guys better have something in your head, whatever you're thinking. So John, okay, so John, you're actually Hope's husband. You're not his wife. You're Hope's husband. So that's great. The two of you together. There you are. So what's the first thing that comes to your head, John, when you think back over the last couple of years?
Golly, talk about being put on the spot. It's crazy because we do so many. I mean, like Hope said, it's like for us, it's weekend after weekend. So I'm having to go through the Rolodex in my brain of creative elements. Man, I know our first when Hope and I first came on staff here was about 4.5 years ago, and we were a part of a church that was pretty modern, up to date. I mean, it was a contemporary service. But we had never quite experienced anything quite like Fellowship Church. And so for me, I don't know if it's a specific element anymore as it is like a moment for us, because we have every year our C3 conference, which, I mean, we have leaders from all over the world come, and it's basically a 3-day, man, it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. Everything from, the speakers that are there, the wisdom, the just leadership principles, the creativity, everything that you experience in C3 is just like, whoa, overwhelming, and especially if you've never been in an environment like this. And so for me, it was really that first week of us being a part of this team, and it was like, wow, this is what you can do with church, because we were used to growing up where, man, you might do about 20 minutes, 30 minutes worth of worship. You have your speaker come up, they would speak, they would do an altar call, they would receive an offering, and then you go home, and then you do it again next week. Whereas here, it's like, man, every week it's something new and something fresh. And so it's hard for me to put my thumb on one element or one moment. For us, it was really like, man, our first week of being here, just having our eyes opened to what we could do. I remember one of the first things we did, we had this huge lighting rig, and it was lowered down by these motors, and at the bottom of the rig, you had like this machine that was just billowing out this haze, and behind it there's this video of all of like this out-of-this-world imagery, shots of the earth, all these big, huge, sweeping shots, and you have somebody in the middle who's literally dressed, man, like they're getting ready to go out of space and like take off. And it was crazy because as the song built and as this moment happened, the lighting rig takes off, and it looks literally like our whole stage was like you were going into space, like you were taking this amazing trip. And it was like, wow, what the heck did we just sign up to do? Like, what are we a part of? I don't even know what this is crazy. And it was just blowing me away because I'd never seen anything like that before. So, again, like I said, it's hard to put my thumb on a song or a creative element. It's like really for us, it was that first week of being a part of this team.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I love the stories. So, Scott or Aaron, how about Scott? You got something that's kind of floating in your head, a creative moment in your church or a striking memory?
I do actually, like John, there's so many, but I do recall, I think the passion that Ed has to communicate with people is astounding, and that's where it all stems from. It's just whatever it takes to convey the message. Mm-hmm. And I think of him and Lisa getting on the roof of our church and getting in a bed for 24 hours. They wrote a book, that talks about a topic that is so relevant to our culture, but taboo in church, and it's sex. And so they wrote a book about relationships and stuff like that, and they did a bed-in, inspired by Yoko and John Lennon probably. They did a 24-hour bed-in, streaming, on the web, on the roof of our church, just to get the word out about, obviously, the book and the series, but also the topic of sex and how the church needs to be a leader in communicating God's truth about it. And it was just, I was amazed that they did it, honestly. Like, it was cold, they were up there all night, and a bunch of other people too, but their passion and willingness to just do stuff like that is, even to talk about it to you right now is shocking to me. I can't believe the stuff that they will do. And it just stems from a heart and a passion to communicate the message. And there's really no limitations in their minds to creativity, and that's really challenged me and taught me a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome story. I am shocked that you, just in listening to it too, but that's great. Aaron, how about you?
You should look it up. It's pretty awesome.
All right. How about you, Aaron?
Man, well, I actually started coming to church when I was 15, when I was in the middle of high school. And so for me, really, I think what kind of, captivated me and made me feel greatly connected is just through what we do as students, through something we have on Wednesday nights called The Mix. And I started coming to the church. I got invited to The Mix to come every Wednesday night. And just, the passion of Ed and Lisa, just to connect to the next generation, to young people, is so great. And really, I don't know, I think the culture of that environment of just, bringing people in and really caring about, not necessarily where, it's not just like a kind of worship concert. Like, we do things to kind of, that will hopefully capture, somebody's attention where they, because I didn't really come from a church background or anything like that, so I had no concept of any kind of churchy songs or anything like that. And so the stuff that, they were doing back then was just, so cutting edge, just, I'm trying to think of an exact song or moment or anything like that, but just the creativity of that was just so powerful and really, had a huge impact on my life. Eventually, I gave my life to Christ here and got baptized, and just, I don't know, I think the creativity of the music and things, what we do, because I was really into music, really caught me, but to just, for my life, I think that was a big part of it, just, how Pastor Ed communicates and just how, the other leadership of the church, how they connect with people in general. But just, for me, young people, it was just very, very huge impact for my life.
Yeah. A few of you spoken about how Pastor Ed communicates. I remember hearing a message from him once, and I picked up that he often speaks with this kind of rhythm and rhyme. Is that quite common in his, it's almost like a poetic expression? And, I don't know, is that common, or was that just one message, that I had heard, where he's got this kind of, I don't know, it's almost poetic, his messages.
I think what he would probably say is he's a frustrated rapper, is what he would tell you. And so I think what you're actually experiencing is his attempt to turn his whiteness into a rap career, which hasn't quite taken off yet.
We produced a few rap songs through some of his.
So needless to say, it is very common to hear rhyme and rhythm. And he does that, honestly, for one, because, man, he's just a fun individual, and he likes to have fun when he's speaking. But he does that very strategically to make it easy, so whenever you're going back, it's like you can remember, like you said, you remember the rhythm, time, like how it all fits together. And it's crazy that he puts so much time into making something that you and I can sit here and we'll laugh about and we'll have fun with it. But in reality, at the end of the day, man, you're taking home something that you can actually apply. And
that's right, and
part of your life.
In your heart. Very good. Okay, Hope, I'm coming back to you. Do you have any kind of story or memory lingering in your mind?
Actually, I do. I remember John and I, this is before we were on staff, in 2010, the summer of 2010, we came to visit Fellowship Church for the very first time, and it was in July. And we turned into the parking lot, and there are people outside in elf suits saying Merry Christmas, and I'm like, what in the world is going on here? So we go into the church, and there are tables full of popcorn and candy and Cokes, and there's this sign that says Fellowship Church at the movies. And I was like, what in the world is this? This is incredible. I was so intrigued. So we get into the worship center, and they basically explain what At the Movies is, and what it is it's actually become a very popular series here at Fellowship Church we do every summer. It's where Pastor Ed will take very popular movies, and he will pull out of a movie a truth or a principle that we can learn from that movie, and he weaves in a very relatable message within the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just remember, and in the movie that day was Elf. And I remember being so blown away that there was a church that was so creative to not only think about those who are already churchgoers and Christians, but thinking about that person who hasn't shown up yet, that person who isn't a Christ follower. I mean, I am a Christian, and I walked in thinking, this is the coolest place I've ever been in my life. I mean, we're in the worship center, and I'm eating popcorn and drinking a Coke, and like watching some of the Elf movie, and then Ed would, you know, come out and explain a truth from the movie, and I was so blown away by the creativity. And I remember sitting on the front row and just thinking in my heart, and this is, like I said, this is before me and John were ever on staff. We're thinking about being on staff. We were visiting Fellowship Church. And I remember sitting there and thinking, God, I want to be a part of a place like this. I want to be a part of a house. I want to get planted in a house that is thinks so strategically about connecting people to Jesus. And it's so crazy, you know, that was July, and then by, you know, the end of December, 1st of January, John and I were coming on staff. And so to me, that was my first impression of the church. I was blown away by that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I really like what you said earlier on. You said that it's a fundamental belief that in your church that God is a creative God, and so by you guys expressing all these various facets of creativity, it's like you're participating in, you know, in the nature of God. I mean, He created us in His image and in His nature, and as such, we're creative beings. And I'm imagining, like so many churches must face and come into a place of kind of dryness and, you know, the repetition, and it's the same thing over and over. And I'm even thinking, I wonder if some people come into your church, especially if they're from another church and they're not thinking about staying at your church, they're thinking about going back to their church, and maybe feeling like intimidated or blown away, or maybe there's some like negative feelings that they would have just to sort of protect themselves from having to apply this to their own. I don't know, have you ever experienced that? I just kind of want to talk about the other side of it, you know, someone who's seeing it and receiving it and feeling overwhelmed. Because, you know, I can tell you, the guy that I was at your church with, you know, his experience was a little bit more feeling that kind of overwhelmed feeling. So tell me about that. Maybe Hope, just while I'm talking with you.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because honestly, that is what our C3 conference is all about. It's, you know, churches from around the globe come here to Fellowship Church to see how we do what we do, because for us, you know, we are a church globally, and we know that. And it's not about, ooh, let's one up the church down the road, or let's be the best.
Right.
And there's pride in that. And so we want to, you know, share with other churches and share with other people how we do what we do, so that if there's something that they see in our house that they want to implement at their church, that they realize, you know what, we can do this. This is, you know, it from a first glance, it may think, you know, people may think, oh my gosh, how do they do this every week? How do they pull this off? And so what we do at C3 is we break it down, and we, you know, we show people, and we show staff and church teams, look, this is how we do this, and you can do this at your church too. And it may look a little bit different, and maybe your budget may look a little different, but at the end of the day, it's about working together as a team, and how can we make the most of an idea that we have where we are with what we have in our hands.
Yeah, and that's true, because you know, my mom and dad actually help lead a church in the Houston area, and their church is not large at all. You know, compared to one of our campuses or Grapevine, it's a significantly smaller church. And so sometimes when they come up here and see what we do, and then they go back to where they are and see what they have to work with, I mean, there's obviously a huge gap. And so for them, sometimes it's almost a little bit discouraging, because it's like, man, how do we make this happen? And the cool thing is, because obviously I have a relationship with my parents, we can have some very real and honest conversations about, okay, what's in your hands? And the reality is, every weekend, that's all we're doing, is trying to use what God's put in our hands, our resources. And that's not just talking financially. That's talking about, our time to be, thoughtful and innovative, and who plays this song, who can be a part of this element, the people, everything, resources encompassing everything like that. That's what we're doing, is trying to use what we have in our hands to go for our absolute best, to take it as far as we can. And so, the cool thing is we can have conversations, and sometimes that functions out of a relationship that you create through C3. For this situation, it's obviously my mom and dad. That relationship was created through birth. But
yeah.
You get to go back, and I get to have very just practical conversations about, okay, who do you have that can do this? And spending a weekend down there and kind of seeing their flow and taking the concepts and just sifting through the concept with what their resources are, and actually giving them some encouragement and some tangible first step, second step, third step, to actually taking their experience and making it go further, making it last, making it more impacting, making it more influential, and reaching more people than what they are right now. Because really it's not necessarily about do what we do. It's kind of taking concepts and translating them to function in your room with your resources.
Great. That's great. That's really good perspective, and thanks for sharing that. I just thought I'd ask the question because I'm thinking there's got to be people on the other side that feel that overwhelmed intimidation factor, especially, you guys are dealing with big budgets and, vast facilities and things like that. So, but I think really it's just about encouraging wherever churches are in their context to be thinking, everybody has access to creativity in some way, breaking out of their own box, however that might look. It doesn't have to be always on the same scale.
That's right,
Yeah.
Ryan. I was just going to say something that Ed always says to us is sometimes you are the most creative when you are limited with your amount of resources. And the reason because of that, you have to step outside of the box when you're limited with resources, whether that be financially or ability, whatever it may be. Man, you have to get super creative and think outside the box. And I know for us as a team, sometimes our most creative moments as a team have been those times where we felt limited in our resources. So I would encourage teams with that as well, that don't let that discourage you, but see that as an opportunity to think outside the box.
Yeah,
get creative.
kind of going back to your example when you were here about having an eagle, I don't know what the value or the cost was to having an eagle here. There probably was a cost. There was a monetary cost to having an eagle here. But the creativity to think of that idea is free. The only cost of that is just your time, energy, and willingness to put the thought into it. So anybody can be creative. We all work with different budgets. But even some people, I had a conversation with the guy who wanted to do video, and he was under the impression that we have just this astronomical budget for doing videos and productions. And the bottom line is, every time we get together for an experience, we're not saying, all right, what can we spend? It's like, all right, what can we not spend? Like, how can we still make this great and not have, like, a decimal point, like, or commas or whatever, and how much it's going to cost? Like, let's keep this as tight as possible. So creative elements, they might cost, but creativity is free. It just takes investment into making some thought happen.
Yeah, that's really good. I subscribe to the Seth Godin. He writes a blog, and just 3 days ago, this just reminded me because his little post was called Embracing Boundaries, and the last quote, he said, is you build something remarkable because of the boundaries, not without them. And he's really speaking to people that are in the context of limitations, and that's where greatness comes out, is when you have to face and overcome and work through those. So that's good. Well, Hope, could we just talk a little about Fellowship Creative? I feel like we got a really good perspective on the church and the kind of culture that you guys live within, but let's sort of zero in a little more on the Fellowship Creative, which is, I'm assuming that's more of the worship component and the music and that of your church. And then Scott, I'd like to talk a little more about the album and then Aaron, maybe we can talk about some of the behind-the-scenes process that you guys went through in coming out with this more recent album that we have. So Hope, could you just give us a little window into Fellowship Creative that's a part of Fellowship Church?
Absolutely, Ryan. Well, like I said earlier, Fellowship Creative wouldn't be who we are without, Fellowship Church. And Fellowship Creative is the arm of Fellowship Church that encompasses anyone and everyone who's creative, that wants to use their artistic ability for Christ, whether that is you're a singer, you're a musician, you're an actual, artist, painter, photographer, dancer, that if you are artistic in any way, man, we want those type of people to be a part of Fellowship Creative. And it's just amazing every weekend how Fellowship Creative plays such a role in our experiences. It's more than just worship songs, which are great, and we need those. It's definitely a centerpiece of our experience, but it's also, creative elements we may be doing to set up Pastor Ed's message. We don't just use musicians and vocalists on the weekend. We use dancers sometimes. We use painters. And so it's really cool to see how it's not just one specific type of artist that's used in our weekend.
Very good.
So broad. So broad. And, it's really cool that we're just a group of creative people that have been changed by the love of Jesus. And because of that, we want to use the gifts that God has given us to help other people have life change as well. And that's just, that is the foundation of who we are at Fellowship Creative and Fellowship Church. Man, everything we do is about connecting people to Jesus and helping them discover who they are in Christ and who He desires to be in them. And, man, that's our fuel every weekend and everything that we do. So.
Yep, beautiful. Well, Scott, maybe you could take us a little more into the most recent album, Running to Follow. So tell me a little about the process of, pulling the songs together for this. Is this are you guys recording an album every year kind of thing, or is it a special project? How does this reflect your the heartbeat of your church?
Well, I would say the albums are kind of just a byproduct of what's always happening here. Even when I think about, you call them records, I think we're basically, the songs are basically things that we've created as we're going along. Songs that are being written out of the stories of the things that are happening here, out of inspiration from message series we're in or whatever. And so really it's almost like we go to make an album, just look back over our shoulder and say, okay, what have we been doing these past months, even the past year, and really taking those songs that we feel like speak the loudest. And I think the passion to record an album is always to take our church beyond the walls. Really, that's what it does. And not only to, obviously, the people who are part of our church, they can take the church with them as they go, but hopefully to reach people outside the walls with the music as well. So I don't know that I think we like to say we record an album every year, but I don't know if that really happens like that. I think it's more when there's been an opportunity. And I think this past album was just that. Our leader, he's not with us, our main worship leader, Derek Bonneau, so I can brag on him a little bit. He is an amazing man, incredible talent, incredible humility, and leads us so well. I think whenever he says, hey, let's make a record, it's time, I think that's when we all jump on it. And so just so as we've talked about the flow of our church, it's about the weekend, it's about that point of connecting with people. I think to make an album always happens outside of that, and it happens as we go along. We don't stop the bus and everybody get off for 2 months and make an album. We kind of make it as we go. And so that's also the beauty of our culture, is we're moving forward and creating. So I feel like I'm talking a little bit in a circle, but more clearly, do you want to ask me some more questions about this specific album?
Yeah, I do. Well, I'd like to know about Running to Follow. So that's the theme of this album. Is that just, the song that most engaged with the people? Did it create a bit of a theme over all of the songs, or is it a heartbeat in the church for this year? Let's just start there, and maybe we'll talk about a couple of the songs. That's what I'd like to know.
What? No, I think it's kind of all of those things. So like I said, how, you know, there's such an organic creative process here. I think it's, you know, the team that's here right now with, you know, Derek leading us is kind of like, let's look at what God's been doing. Let's tell that story. Let's pull those songs together. And then, you know, in that season right there of kind of creating the album, it's like, well, what is the album saying to us? Because really you're evaluating what's already happening. And so I think it comes down to that, you know, this team you're talking to now, kind of listening back to the songs and seeing what speaks to us. And I think the title kind of came out of that is we feel like the heartbeat of Fellowship Creative, the heartbeat of our church is we are running to follow Christ. We are running. We are applying ourselves to it. We are in the game. You know.
I think too. I know I'm not Scott Ryan, but
no,
that's all right.
Let's open her up. It's gonna be good.
No, what I was gonna say is too. This past last couple of years, Ryan, we have embarked on the largest expansion of our church, where we've opened several new campuses. One of our furthest ones is in London. We have one that we opened in Miami, and some here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But in that, one thing that Ed really just challenged us is step out in faith and let's follow Christ. Let's follow where He's leading us as a church as we advance the kingdom together. And I think, you know, when I listen to Running to Follow and when we do as a team, that's something also that that song really does just encompass who we are as a church, that we are continually running. Man, we are in a race and running to follow Him and wherever He leads us and whatever doors He opens for us as a church as we continue to advance His name. And so I think that's another thing that really fueled this album with what God is doing, this movement of just advancing His kingdom that's been happening here in Fellowship Church.
You know, when I look at our album or think about our album, and I think it reflects our church so well in a lot of different ways. You know, I think in church circles, when you say the word worship, a lot of times you think of like eyes closed, hands raised, slow songs. You think of worship as like that. And when I think about worship, and probably most of us here, when you think about worship, it's not just like songs, it's your life. It's how do you say thank you? It's what's your response to who God is? And for us, sometimes worship is like that moment where you're singing to God, you're responding to His love. But I think sometimes also your worship is whenever you are benevolent with the church and you share and you give of your resources. I think another way that you worship is whenever you share who God is to somebody who doesn't know. I think worship is whenever you create an environment for people to experience who God is. And sometimes that's through a song, sometimes that's through a message. And so when I look at our album, you could say it's a worship album in many different facets. And one, obviously, is the songs, a song like Jesus My King. That's a very obvious, like, what you would consider a worship song in the church world. But then when I think you talk about a song, you know, some of our other songs, like maybe, I don't know, Running to Follow or Future Back. Future Back doesn't necessarily have like a worship vibe. It doesn't have like this congregational sing together, we're all singing and worshiping, but it is a song that is a worshipful song because it's talking about somebody maybe who doesn't know God, man, they can identify. And so that's a song that reaches somebody who maybe doesn't know Christ. And to me, that is an act of worship because, man, you're taking that relationship, that life change that you've experienced in God, and you're giving somebody a very tangible, real way to identify with who this God is that you're singing about. You know, so that's kind of one of the unique elements that I think of when I think of Running to Follow is how diverse it is in the sound, but also how diverse it is whenever you think of the word worship, taking it further than just songs that are a response to who God is directly, but indirectly. Like, I'm not just going upward, I'm going out with this message.
Yeah. I was listening to the whole album this morning, and I was really kind of, definitely got a sense of the diversity of, and it's kind of got an aggressive diversity to it of all the songs, and it's interesting to hear you say that your primary aim wasn't necessarily congregational worship in all the songs. Is that what I hear you saying? That the music element of your church is more than just a sing-along, kind of time for the church, even if it is worship songs, but it's something more than that or different? Tell me.
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, really this album reflects our weekends. On the weekends, we don't just do, like what John was saying, what most people consider worship songs. We do that, but in addition to that, many times we will do a song that is maybe more reflective, maybe more of a, not sing along with me, but take this in and let it speak to your heart. That is something we do every single weekend. And so this album, to us, is such a great reflection of that, of what a weekend looks like here at Fellowship Church. I mean, one weekend you may hear a rap song with a rapper like Futureback, and then the next weekend, we may do a song that feels kind of like Mumford & Sons or has a vibe like the song Home. I know one weekend we did that song Home, which is one of my favorite songs, and with it we added this video of just vision of life change that's happened here at Fellowship Church, baptisms, and people they're giving their lives to Christ and joining the church, and it was such a visionary moment. Was it a stand to your feet and sing along with us worship song? No. But it was a worshipful moment, and that as we sing that song Home, people were seeing life change that has happened here at Fellowship Church. And so that's really, this album reflects that so well.
I really like that. I think it's great for people to just have their kind of our box broken a little bit about what worship is, and it doesn't have to just be. It can certainly be a great song that a congregation sings, but that you guys have a much wider view of that, and that seems to be where this album is taking you. So this is great. I love hearing behind the scenes kind of stuff and just the heart and soul behind the whole process. Aaron, you were involved in some of the development of the process behind writing songs and going to the studio and pulling people together to actually make this happen. This was all done, I think, by volunteers for the most part. So why don't you take me into some of that world and what do you remember in the studio and bringing people together to create this project?
Yeah, really, it's to think about, like Scott was talking about, just, overall the songs we've been doing, like we put on this record, are all songs that really have, had a moment, somehow on the weekend experience. And, as a part of that too, like, we want to bring, those people who play with us every weekend, into that, experience as well. So like some of these people you see in this picture, are some of our musicians as well, but we have a large team at every campus, pretty much, a standard kind of band set up at every campus. But beyond that, I mean, we're just trying to think of, for each song, like, man, who would sound great playing guitar on this song or, drumming on this one, and it's everybody from, some of these, some of our volunteers are, in high school, some of our team, is, older than that, like, I don't know.
Really old, like 35.
And what you get, I think, is a broad spectrum of people. Like each of us in here are like very, very different, and these songs are very, very different. And then the players who actually are, recording this stuff are different as well. And man, one thing I think that was really exciting too is just we worked with this producer, C.J. Erickson. He produced our last record and an EP before that, and really he's just got such a creative style as well, just how he produces, and he's worked with, I guess, different artists like U2, Matchbox 20, like kind of all over the map. But one thing, really cool thing about his style is just like he kind of like mixes as he goes. So it's just constant, like we're just constantly creating like content. Like, okay, let's throw a guitar on this section. Let's create this kind of keyboard line. Maybe add this beat and just keep it going. And it made it.
Yep.
I mean, really, I think we recorded this album in the span of like less than a month, I would say, right?
Was it
Like
really?
total time, like it's probably like we did like 2 weeks at a time, I think.
And we cranked it out.
Yeah, and it was like, and in the whole midst of doing what our main thing is our weekend experience and that, and so really I think it was compared to things we've done in the past, I'm really proud of just the time we spent in the studio just with our team and just getting our people in there, and I think on each song, like there's such a different stuff. I'm trying to think in my head of like a song like Jesus My King, that's a little bit more, there's a lot more keyboard kind of centric things going on, and so we definitely pulled in a lot of guys on that and just the production side of it. But maybe a song like Magnify is just pretty much like your complete band setup. So just incorporating a lot of our great guitar players and bass players, musicians, things like that. I mean, it's a great kind of collaborative effort, I think, just in the process, while being intentional. Like Hope mentioned, there's parameters, obviously, we put into place in creating it. It wasn't just like a free-for-all, like, let's just like create all this stuff and whatever. We were creating a lot of content with a great intentionality of like, how we want it to sound and feel generally, and I think what has resulted from that, just in the final mix and all of that, what you have on the CD is a very I'm trying to describe the word. It feels like it kind of took its own form just through all of it, all the many hands that were involved in creating it, which I think I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Hey, we got a couple of questions coming in and very much related to what we're talking about. And if there's anyone listening to the live element of this and does have a question, please let us know. I'd love to bring them to the team here as we're kind of wrapping up in the next 10 or 15 minutes. But Narsley was just asking, what's the songwriting process like? Does one person write? Do all of you write one song together or what? So I was really getting a sense you were just saying how a song is developed once it's kind of, brought to the studio. But what's the process like before that? Who gets to bring a song, and do they start by just playing on the guitar and everyone kind of gathers around and throws in, or like take me into that world for you guys as a team?
I think we build a campfire first, and then everybody gathers. Marshmallows.
Yeah.
It's our culture in general is truly collaborative, and again, it's like I feel like I'm on repeat, but Ed himself, the most creative guy, is a collaborator. Like he'll pull anything in on everything he's doing, and he loves to have a group to create with. And so when it comes to how we make music in the studio, the writing process it mirrors it. It's where, usually every song has a birth. It starts somewhere with a concept or an original idea, and that's usually a person who has it. It might just be a lyrical idea, a verse or a chorus, but then it's like the whole team just getting involved and helping expand on that. And so, the first time you might hear an idea, Derek might say, hey, I have a song idea. He tends to write whole songs, but he'll sit you down with his guitar and play it for you, right? And from the second he's playing it for 3 or 5 or 8 of us, it's to see what else we think about it. And, from melodies to lyrics to everything, I think it's all open to that. Or it may just be John or Aaron having a hook, a lyrical hook or a melodic hook. But it is true collaboration right up until the final, stamp is on a recording. We are constantly, as a team, I think, crafting the sound, crafting the message, crafting the feel and the lyric to say it the best way it can, that we feel like will connect with the most people. And again, that is part of our culture and everything we do. So it applies to the songwriting, the record making, all of that, and which is actually very untraditional. I would say artists
tend to be more inclusive. I'm just saying across the board, outside of church and in church. Just it's truly collaborating is rare, but this culture has that, and I do credit that to the heart of our pastor and how he has created a church that way. And Fellowship Creative is just part of that, and we just want to make things the best they can be, and that's the heartbeat of it.
You know, I'm thinking if I'm a part of an environment like what you're describing, I'm just sort of, suggesting, then I don't feel like I need to come to the table with a full song, and maybe I just have a hook, or maybe just a piece of a lyric or a melody that becomes that seed that could be deposited into this. It's like soil, this collaboration that you guys are creating, and you plant a seed, and it starts growing something that was never there in the beginning, and maybe that would even free up more songwriting, because you just don't feel like, I have this song but it's not done and I want to finish it, and it's not going to be finished till next December, and you don't have time. Just like, what do you have? Just give it to us, and maybe then everybody else kind of stomps on it like a magnet, like we just sort of, that's a good idea, and then maybe this, and suddenly the song's not yours anymore, right? It becomes...
That's so true, Ryan. That's so true, and what you just said is, we all, anytime any of us bring a song idea, we come in with that heart of, this is not my song. This is a song that I'm bringing to the table. We all have the heart of, we want to make it the best it can be. So, we all kind of pull the best out of each other. And so you're so right. When we approach the writing table, there is that freedom. There isn't that pressure of, oh my gosh, I didn't finish the song, or, so it's so true.
And I think we have that environment because there's a trust with one another. There's not like, well, what's he going to change about my song, or what's he not going to like, or what's he going to think, or I can't share this because I don't know. I think because there's that camaraderie and that team, that respect for one another, it's such a strong team environment. You do feel the liberty, and you do feel the freedom to bring an idea, whether that idea is just like a little voice memo you recorded in your car on the way here, or it's like Derek saying, hey, I had this idea, and then he plays it, and it's like the entire flipping song. So whatever it is, just bring it.
Yeah, we what's cool about this album, Running to Follow, too, is, we have that kind of, bouncing collaboration for ourselves, but this is actually the first record we put out on a record label. We're signed with Fair Trade Services out of Nashville, and I think even with that, like, it just brought a great kind of sharpening to the songs, like how to make them accessible to people. Like, because if we made a record like just the way I would want it to sound, or the way John would want it to sound, or the way that Scott would, or Hope, like, it would be, it would no doubt be awesome, but trying to think about how it would, how this album can branch out to, to all kinds of people and stuff like that. So I think, just through some of the guys that we've worked with that and just putting it out, they've been remarkable, and just their feedback just on some of the songs, and just how to, make it more, I guess, accessible too. Because, also like Hope was talking about, like, not every song on here is just a worship song, and even, for worship songs, like, you've got basically thinking about, like, Christ followers and, other people who don't have a relationship with God, like, accessibility into a worship song might be kind of hard, but, also having both ends of the spectrum just keeps it, kind of open in a way. So I think, I don't know, that's something really unique, I think, about this project, and just, some of that stuff as we've been writing, I think, this album, I think we tailored a lot of that, a lot of it with that in mind.
Totally.
Right on. Well, guys, I feel really encouraged. In fact, I'd really like to join your team. So if I can find a house in Dallas, I'm coming to your church, and because I've got a hook, and I just want to share it with you guys.
I'd love to hear it, Ryan. Why don't we get offline? Yeah, you are part of the team.
Okay.
We'll take your song ideas.
I know. The scary thing is you probably would. So that's great. You guys are very encouraging. You've been an incredible group. You're obviously very comfortable with each other, and good to have a few laughs together, and I mean, what fun to be in an environment like this and to have kind of jobs or life callings and purposes or whatever it is that you guys are able to dedicate yourselves to this, and now hopefully through this, the record deal that you have, that the album can go further and wider, and the stories can get out and touch other churches' lives, and hopefully not intimidate them, but actually inspire and encourage them to think out of the box in their own environment and be a creator, just as we worship a creator, right? And so I think that's the message that you guys want to give. So thank you for that. I think this is great. We've had some really good interactions. Do you feel like there's anything else that we're missing? I mean, we've talked through everything from the top of the church, right from the roof of the church down to the heart of songwriting and everything in between. So just for those of you who are interested, I'm actually having a webinar in a couple of weeks with Steve McPherson, who is my friend out at Hillsong Church, and we're actually going to talk specifically about the whole aspect of churches who are recording songs and making albums and sort of dabbling in this publishing world and trying to understand things like, copyrights and logistics of that. And you just kind of want to not get trapped in the trappings of that world, but it's just a reality. And I think, you guys are probably having to deal with that at some level as well. So that's going to be in a couple of weeks on a Monday night, and he'll be actually talking with me from Australia down there. So that'll be great. And then we're doing another webinar with Russia Fools, who's another songwriting group you guys are probably familiar with. So more great stuff coming up, and just glad to have you guys. Do you mind if I kind of close this out in prayer, and then we'll send everyone on their way? Is that good?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Jesus, for Hope and Scott and Aaron and John and all the people that are a part of Fellowship Creative and Fellowship Church, and Pastor Ed Young. Thank you for his gift that he is not just to Dallas, but it sounds like churches are popping up all around the globe that have this inspiring creative spirit, and there is a center to it. It's not just creativity for the sake of itself, but it's for the sake of magnifying Jesus. And I hope that we've done that here in this last hour, that whoever's listening to this, that someone's hearing it and feeling encouraged, inspired, feeling the joy that exists even among us as we're talking, and the freedom. And so we just want to pray for that freedom, pray for the creative spirit to just flow through churches all around the nation and all around the world, that people could unlock from the monotony of repetition that they might find themselves in, or the comfort of what is expected and what's been done before, but to be able to just allow new thoughts, new dreams, new visions, dancers, painters, singers, rappers, and everything in between, that that worship is not just about, singing that quiet song by the campfire. It's really about living a life and expressing something unique that you give us all. So thanks for how that displays in these 4 young people, and for their encouragement to churches around them. We bless them in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, Brian.
Okay, bless you guys. Thanks for making this easy, man. I was kind of sweating when I went into this, because I thought, I don't know these people, and how's it going to go? But you made it really, really easy to talk to you, so appreciate that very much.
Hey, let us know if we can do something with you again. We'd love to do something with you again, Ryan.
Okay, thank you very much. God bless you all. I'll let you go here, okay? Thanks very much.
Take care. Thanks.